This is Australia, the land full of Vegemite, deadly animals that can kill you, and Aboriginals who get discriminated. So, as freedom loving Americans, you might be wondering who are the Aboriginals of Australia? But first, some context. The Aboriginal people of Australia have their origins in Africa, thought to have migrated from the African plains through Asia and eventually island hopping until they reached the Great Southern Land in 40,000 BC. They mostly lived a hunter-gatherer lifestyle up until the 1600s, when the first European explorer, Abel Tasman, arrived. He was sailing east along the Australian coast and spent a few nights on the mainland. The Australian state of Tasmania is named after him. Some years later, British explorer Captain James Cook landed in Botany Bay, just off Sydney, in 1700, and set up a British colony. Later, in 1788, Captain Phillip arrived with the First Fleet. On board the First Fleet ship, Britain colonized Australia because of empires. The British were competing for land with two major empires of the day, France and Spain. Britain also needed Australia to stand its criminal population because of the recent independence of the USA. It was at this point of history where the discrimination of the Aboriginals began. Racism is persistently an issue with regard to Australian Aboriginals, and it has been for many years, just as it was for the Native Americans. Their suffering was tremendous. In the 1800s, there were a number of massacres of the indigenous population, wiping out hundreds of thousands of the native population who did nothing wrong. Massacres of the native Australian people were carried out by hunting parties, soldiers, armed settlers, and even police. Throughout history, many Aboriginals suffered debilitating health due to the fact they could not access medical treatment. As you could see, our Aboriginal community was suffered greatly, with many going to an early grave. Grief, grieving, sorrow, loss, death, pain, distress, lament, mourn, emptiness, despair, lonely, regret, misfortune, guilt, passion, love, absence, desolate, and nothing. Between 1910 to 1970, the Indigenous peoples endured what was called the Stolen Generation. Children of Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander descent were forcibly removed from their families to be made more civil by government policies and church commissions. Without warning, they broke from our soft, whispered conversation. One took a handful of my hair and led my head to their knee. Another washed his face in my blood. Together they chained my feet. The current impact of racism in Australia is ongoing to this day. Many Aboriginals still get racist comments said towards them. They get caught out in public, and even in extreme cases, people physically abuse them. So how does this relate to you? Racism is all connected around the world. From America to Australia, racism is an old ideology that unnecessarily divides people. The hate towards the native people of the lands must stop. The violence must stop, for us to be a united people of a united